Hey guys, Mango here. Today we're looking at some recent card changes coming up in May 20th, so in 2 days, right after the end of the current Grand Prix, I believe. No nerfs, these are all buffs, so they're doing the same strategy as they did before, where they're going to buff some cards that are rotating out for classes that are seeing less play at the moment. And they're just going to hope that they do something. In the past, the strategy has not really been effective, but I think they're going really hard on these buffs here compared to the buffs that they've tried in the past. So, first up we have Mecha Blade Soldier. He went from a 6 play point 4/6 to a 4 play point 4/4. And his effect is, when he strikes, he deals 1 damage to all enemy followers, unless you have another mech follower, and then he does 2 damage instead. And he also has a mech in a trait. So I had to look him up again because I forgot what he did. It's been a while since I've seen the Mecha Blade Soldier. Reduction of cost from 6 to 4 is really big. That's super big. 6 will just unplayably slow. It's ridiculously slow. It's just costs way too much for an effect like this. Having a nice solid board clear attached to an evolve is nice. You can get rush from stuff like Johan or the new card for sword called, trying to remember him, look him up, make sure I'm not forgetting his name. Yeah, Grayson Rocket Blader. So if you get a Grayson Rocket Blader with your Mech Blade Soldier early in the game, it'll be very strong. Give him a rush without having to evolve. He can get his ability off right away. So, yeah, we can see Mech Sword coming back definitely as an answer to board-based decks and just be able to win against other board-based decks. Something like Mechana Blood. I'm not sure if it has enough power to deal with Mechana Haven, because the stats for Mechana Haven just get too big, and generally sort of just cannot compare, but it might have a decent matchup against Blood. And Blood's a very, very, very popular deck right now. Next up we have Johan Ironforged Hero. He's going from a 3/5 to a 5/6. Really big buffs, like huge buffs. Essentially, you want to play him for really cheap, and the 3/5 is okay. It's pretty good for like a really cheap, cost reducted rush follower. And going from 3/5 to 5/6 lets him clear a lot more stuff. He's more resilient with a 6 life. Very, very strong buff. Now, if anything is going to help Sword deal with stuff like mid-late game Blood, mid-late game Haven, then this is going to be it. Maybe a little more resilient too against stuff like Artifact Portal, which is going to be another mid-range matchup that's going to be tough for Sword to deal with. And this definitely helps. Both these buffs really help against Artifact. It just really depends on who's going to get their combo rolling in the mid game in that matchup. Next up we have Aina Amethyst Rebel. She's going from 6 play point 3/3 to a 4 play point 2/2. She saw some play in the past with the Mechana build for a Shadow. It just generally stayed at the same pace that I did in the past, and that's just too slow. Getting a little bit of a defensive spike in the mid game, and then having a really late game finisher with the Joy. Now you can play her defensively much earlier, and she's harder to deal with in that early game. Like you still get the roly-poly who's a 2/2, and you can only take 1 damage at a time. So really hard to clear him in the early game, unless you have Bane or Banish, or just straight up destroy effects. But a lot of early game is really damage based at the moment. So it's pretty good against blood. If you're not losing horrendously in the early game already. If you're going about even with blood, then it's pretty good. Haven, it's actually very good against Haven, as long as you're not losing horrendously in the early game. Because on turn 4, they usually want to evolve Lamonia or Elena, and they only can clear one thing, and they can't clear the roly-poly because they only do damage once and don't have any destroy effects. So you might be able to get another roly-poly or another joy off of Ina in that early game, which is decent, but a little bit too slow against Haven, I think. Like, Joy is just going to be a defensive card. You're probably not going to play it on 9. It's just going to be a defensive card to kind of stall for another win con. Maybe you have to play multiple Joys in a game to survive against Haven. It's just kind of tough for Shadow. Another thing to note is that Roly-Poly is very weak against Nerea because she lowers his stats, and this card is not particularly good against Nerea. Yeah, it still gets pretty easily removed, and Shadow still has a semi-difficult time dealing with that card. So the Blood matchup's not getting too much better, and the Haven matchup's not really getting too much better either. But this is going to be maybe a solid defensive card for something like Hades. Hades. Yeah, that's it's interesting for that deck. I can see that. We can see Mech Shadow maybe okay if we see a new good legendary. We haven't seen a legendary card for Shadow yet. That's what we're really looking forward to see if Shadow is good enough. But like, in my opinion, the best Shadow deck at the moment is probably Yokai, followed by Hades, or Hades, whatever you want to call it, Hades. So really matchup dependent, those two decks. Like, very matchup dependent. There's only a few good matchups for Yokai, and it's still a solid deck. It just has some pretty bad matchups. I don't think you could really play this in a deck like Natura Shadow. Natura Shadow's okay, but like turn 4, you really need to be generating Natura trees in hand, and it is just a stall that's not going to help too much, I think, because it doesn't generate you any last word effects, which you need for Toth. So, my opinion on that. Another thing to note is that now that she got 4, you can revive her with the Shadow spell. I think it's something Friendship. I'm really bad at remembering. Yeah, Friends Forever. Yeah, so Friends Forever can now revive her. So if she dies on turn 4, you can maybe revive her from Friends Forever to get another Joy or another Roly-Poly. But the Roly-Poly also costs 4, so you have a chance of reviving that instead, which is not terrible, but I mean, maybe you probably want to get her instead. And last card we have buffed is Colossal Skull-Lord, which has not seen much play at all. Costing 7 and having effect that just does 3 damage to all non-Mechna followers, including your own, fairly weak. Especially in a meta where there's going to be a lot of Mechna followers. So, kind of just a 7 play 0.66, do nothing. Right now, you want your 7 play 0.66 to draw you a whole new hand of reduced cost and also destroy your opponent's biggest follower. That's what you want your 7 drop to do. So, he doesn't do that, but instead, if there's an allied Mechna follower in play, then he does 4 damage to all enemy followers. Otherwise, deal 4 damage to all other followers. Yeah, so I have a feeling they actually read my tweet, because in my tweet I said that they should kind of format it a little bit different, instead use otherwise. There should be a comma here. I don't know. I'm getting off topic because the formatting bothers me in these cards. It's understandable, but the formatting is a little bit weird. If this was a real life card game, the cards would not function. But it's because it's a digital card game, you don't have to worry about the semantics as much. Anyways, is it good? It's okay. Its 4 damage is not really good enough to clear the important things, like Almakis and Nerea, which I usually cite as being the cards to beat at the moment. It's not good enough to beat those, the 4 damage. It is good enough to beat the other problem card from Blood, their new 4-drop, which is really tough for Shadow to beat. The Noon, Daybreak Vampire. So you can beat that pretty solidly. It's good for that. As long as you have another mech and a follower. Well, even if you don't, it's okay. So there's that. I wish it maybe had a little bit less attack and maybe some ward or something. A little more defensive. But pretty solid, especially if you get it off of Joy. So maybe it goes back into the Mechana Shadow deck. So very, very big buffs overall. Sword's getting a lot of big buffs. I'm worried that the matchups aren't going to be, that it losing are not going to be any better. The extra stats might help, but you're still going to have some of the same troubles that you had before. Like, Roly-Poly's still going to get destroyed by Fire Embrace and stuff like that you'll see pretty commonly. But this might be a good answer against Natura Rune. And lastly, we have changed to Take-Two. I haven't been playing much Take-Two, but I know that Portal has been very dominant in Take-Two. This is being taken away from Portal. Another card that they're removing from Portal. Because they're just too dominant in Take-Two. Yeah, not a big deal unless you're a Take-Two player. So that's it. Look forward to videos about the new card reveals for the mini expansion. I'm going to do a condensed version when all the cards get revealed. And my opinions on Shadow will probably hopefully change if we see that new legendary. The new gold card they got was fairly good. It's very solid, especially for Hades. Or Hades. Yeah. So let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.